On the darkest nights, when a winter storm is raging, you're supposed to listen. You just might hear the thunder of hooves in the clouds and the cry of a ghostly horn. For centuries, that sound was the sign of the Wild Hunt, a spectral parade of the dead, led by gods and damned souls. But is this just a spooky story to tell by the fire? Or is there a deeper truth to this ancient myth? From the Norse god Odin gathering souls for his army, to the terrifying villains of modern fantasy, like in The Witcher, we're going to uncover the true story of the Wild Hunt and what its appearance still means today. Introduction. The Wild Hunt is one of the oldest and most persistent legends in European folklore. It's a story that's been whispered in dozens of languages and in countless variations, from the frozen fjords of Scandinavia to the misty forests of England. At its core, the legend is always the same: a ghostly leader, a terrifying horde of hunters and hounds, and a mad chase across the night sky. They are an omen, a sign of chaos and great disaster. Witnessing the hunt could mean war, plague, or even your own death. Some stories even claim that if you ran into the cavalcade, your spirit could be ripped from your sleeping body to join the ghostly procession forever. So, where did this terrifying image come from? Why has the idea of a spectral hunt captured our imagination for so many centuries? Is it just a scary way to explain the howling winter wind, or does it tap into something deeper inside all of us? This isn't just a story about ghosts and goblins. It's a story about how our beliefs evolve. It's about how gods become devils, how old traditions get recycled, and how a timeless fear of chaos can be turned into the ultimate fantasy villain. To understand the Wild Hunt, we have to go back to the beginning, to a time when the leader of this terrifying chase wasn't a demon, but one of the most powerful gods of the North, Odin. Section 1. Ancient Origins, Odin's Furious Host. Long before the Wild Hunt was seen as pure evil, it was tied directly to the Norse god Odin. In old Scandinavian and Germanic traditions, this event was known as Oskoreia, meaning the ride of Asgard, or Odin's jacked Odin's hunt. This wasn't some random haunting. It was a divine event linked to the deepest, darkest part of the year, the Winter Solstice, or Yule. As the longest night fell, the veil between worlds was thought to be at its thinnest, and Odin, the Allfather, would ride out. Now, Odin is a complicated guy. He's the god of wisdom, poetry, and magic, but he's also the god of war, frenzy, and death. His original name in Proto-Germanic, Wohanaz, even translates to Lord of Frenzy, or Leader of the Possessed. And that furious, chaotic Odin is the one leading the hunt. On his 8-legged horse, Sleipnir, he'd thunder across the sky with his wolves and ravens. But he wasn't alone. His hunting party was a terrifying host of supernatural beings, Valkyrie spirits, and most importantly, the Einherjar, the souls of the greatest warriors who had fallen in battle gathered by Odin to feast in Valhalla, until they fight at his side during Ragnarok, the end of the world. In this original context, the hunt was a symbol of cosmic power. It represented the gathering of souls, the chaos of a winter storm, and the powerful, untamable force of nature. The German scholar Jacob Grimm, who first documented the myth's widespread nature in his 1835 work Deutsche Mythologie, argued the hunt was a clear leftover from pre-Christian beliefs centered on this fierce god. For the people on the ground, the hunt was something to be feared and respected. It was often heard more than seen, a racket of barking dogs, pounding hooves, and horns on the wind. Hearing it might just foretell a change in weather, but it could also be an omen of war or disaster. Being caught outside during its passage was a terrible idea. Old folk wisdom said travelers should throw themselves face down in the middle of the road to avoid being swept away by the ghostly riders. But the hunt wasn't always just about destruction. In some traditions, it was seen as a kind of ritual renewal, blessing the land and accepting offerings from people. One 19th century scholar, Wolfgang Menzel, even theorized that the hunt acted as a midwinter renewal ritual, scooping up impure souls, but also helping ancestral souls be reborn. This dual nature, both terrifying and sacred, was a hallmark of pagan belief. But this complex view of the divine wasn't going to last. As a new faith spread across Europe, the god of wisdom and war would be recast into something much, much darker. Section 2. The Christianization of the myth. The arrival of Christianity in Europe kicked off a massive and deliberate rebranding of the continent as ancient beliefs. Pagan gods and spirits, once seen as complex forces of nature, were sorted into two new boxes. They were either powerless fictions, or, more often, they were demonized and twisted into servants of the devil. The Wild Hunt was a prime target for this theological makeover. As Jacob Grimm noted, the god Woden, or Odin, lost his sociable character and assumed the aspect of a dark and dreadful power, a specter and a devil. The divine procession of a god gathering his heroes was reframed as a hellish parade of the damned. The hunt was no longer a sign of cosmic balance, but a punishment for sin. The riders were now the souls of the unbaptized, the wicked, and the greedy, cursed to ride the night skies for all eternity. This change is crystal clear in one of the earliest and most detailed written accounts, recorded around the year 1140 by a monk named Orderic Vitalis. He tells the story of a priest who, on New Year's Eve, witnesses a terrifying procession he calls Hellequin's household. It is led by a giant swinging a club and is filled with suffering souls being tortured by demons for their sins on earth. And even earlier, though less detailed, mention from 1127 in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle also describes locals witnessing a host of black-clad, horned hunters riding through the woods. The divine hunt had officially become a mobile vision of hell, a scary story designed to reinforce Christian morality and keep people from straying. The leader of the hunt started to change too. While Odin still led the chase in many Germanic areas, new figures took his place, often historical or biblical figures known for their sins. In parts of France, the leader was said to be King Herod. In other tales, it's just an unnamed, cursed nobleman, like Germany's Count Hackelberg, who was damned for his obsession with hunting, even on Sunday. The myth's purpose had shifted from explaining nature to enforcing religious rules. The howling wind was no longer Odin's call, but the wailing of tormented souls. The riders were no longer warriors headed to Valhalla, but sinners paying a terrible price. This transformation ensured the myth would survive, but it stripped away its ancient meaning, turning a powerful pagan symbol into a tool of Christian fear. Section 3. Regional Variations. A hunt of many faces. As the Wild Hunt myth spread, it fractured into a whole bunch of local legends, each with its own unique flavor. While the main idea of a ghostly chase stuck around, the details were shaped by the specific folklore and geography of each region. In England, the most famous leader is Herne the Hunter, a ghost said to haunt Windsor Forest. First written down by Shakespeare in The Merry Wives of Windsor, Herne is described as a ghostly keeper of the forest with giant, jagged antlers, who rides at midnight, cursing trees and tormenting cattle. One popular origin story claims he was a real huntsman for King Richard II who, after being fatally wounded by a stag, was saved by a dark magician. The price for his life? His skill as a hunter. In despair, he hanged himself from an oak tree, forever doomed to lead his own wild hunt. Scholars think Herne might just be a local version of an older pagan god, maybe connected to the Anglo-Saxon Woden or the Celtic horned god Cernarnos. Head west into Wales, and the hunt is led by a much older and more powerful figure, Gwyn ap Nudd. In Welsh mythology, Gwyn is the king of the fairies, or Tylwyth Teg, and the ruler of the Welsh otherworld, Annwn. He is a psychopompa guide for souls, and his job is to gather the spirits of the dead and lead them to the afterlife. He rides with his pack of spectral hounds, the Seen Un, which are described as having white coats and spooky red ears. Unlike in the English version, where just hearing the hounds is scary, in Welsh lore, hearing the baying of the Aen Elle was a direct sign that someone in your family was about to die. Across the Channel in France, the hunt is often known as La Chasse Helliquin. And here's where it gets really weird. The leader, Harlequin, is thought to be connected to that early account by Orderic Vitalis, and might just be the great-great-great-grandfather of a surprise character, the Harlequin from Italian comedy. Originally, Harlequin was a terrifying, black-faced demon. But over centuries, as the legend was adapted into plays, this demonic leader and his chaotic crew slowly morphed from figures of terror into bumbling, comical devils. Eventually, this tradition crossed into Italy, where a similar demon appeared in Dante's Inferno, and later emerged as the nimble trickster servant Arlecchino, his black mask a faint echo of his demonic origins. Meanwhile, in Slavic countries like Poland, the myth appears as Dziki Gon. However, many folklore researchers believe this version isn't a native Slavic myth, but was likely imported from neighboring Germanic traditions, though the true origins are still debated. This huge variety of leaders from gods and kings to damned souls and even comedians shows just how adaptable the Wild Hunt myth really is. Section 4. The Bridge to Modern Fantasy. For centuries, the Wild Hunt was a living piece of folklore, a story passed down by word of mouth. Its journey from medieval villages to the pages of modern fantasy novels and video games was really paved by 19th century folklorists and the Romantic movement. The key figure here was Jacob Grimm. When he published his massive study Deutsche Mythologie in 1835, he didn't just write these stories down in a dusty book. He analyzed them, compared them, and presented the Wild Hunt as a single epic mythological concept with deep pagan roots. This scholarly work took a bunch of scattered local superstitions and elevated them into something grand. And the Romantic poets and writers, who were obsessed with the past and the supernatural, ate it up. The hunt was no longer just a warning to stay inside on a stormy night. It became a powerful literary symbol of wild nature, supernatural terror, and a lingering pagan past. This romanticized version started popping up in literature. William Wordsworth wrote about it, and the Norwegian poet Johann Sebastian Welhaven's work directly inspired Peter Nicolai Arbo's famous 1872 painting, The Wild Hunt of Odin. For many people, that painting is the Wild Hunt Odin leading a chaotic, menacing horde across a stormy sky. It perfectly captures the terrifying grandeur the Romantics saw in the legend. As the 20th century dawned, this tradition flowed right into the new genre fantasy. Authors, drawing on the groundwork laid by scholars like Grimm, started weaving these ancient myths into their own imagined worlds. The Wild Hunt was a perfect fit. It was archetypal, visually spectacular, and dripping with magic. It appeared in various forms, like in Susan Cooper's acclaimed series, The Dark is Rising, where Herne the Hunter plays a major role. The stage was set for the Wild Hunt to be reinterpreted once again, not just as a folk tale or a literary device, but as a real, terrifying enemy. Section 5. The Wild Hunt in The Witcher. Of all its modern makeovers, none have brought the Wild Hunt to a global audience quite like its appearance in The Witcher Saga by Polish author Andrzej Sapkowski and the blockbuster video games by CD Projekt Red. But the Dziki Gon of the Witcher world is a brilliant and radical break from its folkloric roots. In the world of The Witcher, the Wild Hunt is not a ghostly parade of the dead. There's something else entirely. An elite cavalry unit of elves, the Aen Elle, from another dimension. They are physical beings, decked out in terrifying, skeletal armor, and their spectral horses are just magical projections. Their ghostly appearance is a deliberate illusion, a form of psychological warfare to terrify the people of the worlds they invade. Their leader isn't Odin or some damned nobleman, but Eredin Bréacc Glas, the ruthless king of the Aen Elle. and their motive isn't to gather souls or punish sinners. It's a desperate quest for power and survival. The Aen Elle's home world is being slowly destroyed by a magical cataclysm called the White Frost. Their goal is to find Ciri, the adopted daughter of the Witcher Geralt, because her unique elder blood gives her the power to open gates between worlds. They want to use her power to evacuate their entire civilization to a new world and conquer it. Sapkowski masterfully deconstructs the myth. The fear and superstition surrounding the hunt are shown to be a big misunderstanding. The common folk see a terrifying, supernatural omen. The reality is that the Aen Elle are just dimension-hopping raiders looking for slaves. The wild hunt of folklore is an omen of disaster. The wild hunt in The Witcher is the disaster. They are not a symbol of chaos. They are the agents of it, tangible and deadly. It's a testament to the myth's power that it can be so completely reimagined, shifting from a folktale about the fear of the unknown to a sci-fi fantasy story about a desperate king leading an elven army across dimensions. Conclusion. So, what a ride. The journey of the wild hunt is an incredible story of how culture works. It began as a way to give a face to the howling winter winds and our awe of the divine. It was Odin's furious host, a sacred and terrifying symbol of nature's raw power. It was a myth that held the complex duality of the pagan world, both creative and destructive. With the rise of a new religion, the hunt was transformed. Its gods became devils, its sacred warriors became damned souls, and its purpose shifted from a cosmic event to a cautionary tale. It put on 1,000 different masks, the antlers of Herne the Hunter in an English forest, and the otherworldly authority of Gwyn ap Nudd in the Welsh hills. It survived by adapting. Then, captured by 19th century scholars and poets, it was given a new life in literature and art, becoming an archetypal symbol of the supernatural. This bridge carried it into modern fantasy, where it was finally reforged into the ultimate villain, a tangible army of elven conquerors in the world of the Witcher. From a pagan god to a demonic specter, from a folklore motif to a fantasy antagonist, the wild hunt has never truly left us. It remains a powerful symbol of our collective fears, of the storm, of the unknown, and of chaos. And it reminds us that some stories are so deeply rooted in who we are that they can change their form, their leader, and their meaning, yet still ride on through the storms of history, forever hunting in the darkest corners of our imagination. What are some local legends or ghost stories from your region? Share them in the comments below. We'd love to read them. And if you enjoyed this journey into the heart of folklore, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more explorations of history and myth.